Hi, everybody. This is the Cloak and Dagger Weekly Briefing with Albert Marko and myself, Tony Nash. Thanks for joining us today. I just want to start off saying we've been kind of hit and miss over the last probably 6 weeks. Albert and I have been doing a lot of, alternative travel and other things. So it's just kind of as we close out the summer. So thanks for being patient with us. And as we get into the fall, that'll kind of even out more and we'll be back on
Mhm.
our weekly schedule. And also, before we get started, please like and subscribe. We're doing this content for free right now. We're not being paid by YouTube. So the more subscriptions we get, the more monetization we get, and that just helps us out. So we just appreciate that. So big week in the US, but other places as well. We're going to talk about a few things today. First is political violence in the US. We had the Charlie Kirk assassination, and that was huge here. So if you don't live in the US and you don't understand why it's huge, we'll talk through that. We're also going to talk about destabilization. We have some events happening in Brazil, Nepal, and Colombia. This is critically important right now, and we'll get into that. And we also have the issue of Russian drones over Poland and Romania. So, Albert, the Charlie Kirk assassination, terrible. The reason I think this is important is the following. I have three kids from high school to post university. All three of them were glued to the news when Charlie Kirk was shot, and all three of them have been glued to socials in the wake of it. And I don't know if you're not in the US, I don't think you understand how much of a political force Charlie Kirk was. I believe between the Charlie Kirk demographic and Gen X, those two cohorts are what elected Trump in 2024. And so he had an amazing way. If he would go straight to college campuses and talk things out with people, it wasn't just kind of shouting matches. It was a lot of discourse, these sorts of things. And he was hated by people on the left. And so, we see that this is a way to silence a force that is, very vocal. We've seen people mock, his killing, that sort of thing, which is just really sad. It's not how we act in a civil society. So, what are your thoughts? Like, where do you think things are right now? Is it a big deal, or am I just making too much of it?
No, it's an extremely big deal. I mean, we're talking about, political assassination for he wasn't running for president, he wasn't running
Nope,
for Senate, he wasn't
nope.
doing any of that stuff. He was just undermining the entire narrative from the Democratic talking points, and it was to the point where he was a threat to them, and they didn't specifically call him out, but using the terminology like fascist or Nazi or pick your word there. um it's harmful, right? It's harmful to society, right? You can't there's a distinct difference of what the left says is harmful rhetoric and then what the left is like spouting out themselves, right? They sit there and they argue, well, Trump's words and blah 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 was hurtful, and that led to the Charlottesville, violence where the guy drove over, a couple people, whatever, back when.
Not to discount the importance of that,
I'm
right?
not discounting the importance of
Right.
it, right? But when you make an argument that words are harmful and lead to violence, right, you cannot sit there and disassociate yourself from when these shootings happened, because it was Trump, it was Charlie Kirk. Remember the congressional shootings at the baseball field,
Yep,
right?
Steve Scalise. Yep.
Yes, so you have a pattern here where the left and the media continuously demonize conservatives for nothing more than just arguing, what points that the Democrats are making,
Yeah, it's
and
politics. You're gonna have
it's just
disagreements, right?
politics, right? But you can't. But they're unwilling to even take any accountability, because if they do that, then it's a big problem for them politically, right? It's just we're not in a good place.
It's very strange to have seen. I lived outside of the US for about 15 years, longer than that, about 25 years off and on. Coming back and seeing the environment that we have, it wasn't like this when I left. And, to seeing the weaponization of media, it wasn't really weaponized in the 90s, but the media have really, and people have been fired on channels in the media here in the US for kind of making light of or mocking this assassination. I mean, can you imagine? I mean,
Tony,
we're living through this.
it's not getting better. The situation is not getting better.
Right,
Neither side is really holding anyone accountable to what their supporters are doing. Right?
right.
For in politics, there's every action has an equal but even harsh reaction at some point in time. Right?
Disproportionate, yeah.
Very disproportionate. Right? But there's only one side that controls the media.
Right.
Right? Let's just be honest. I mean, the conservatives have like what, one channel, if that, and the rest of the smaller ones, whereas the left has everything from
Yeah.
Hollywood on down, right? And
Newspapers, online media,
they control
Reddit, you name
they
it.
can
Yep.
yeah. Reddit is a cesspool.
Yep.
Discord and Reddit are absolute cesspools that need to be
Yep.
shut down.
Yep.
Moderated and shut down. It's just I've been on them. They're absolutely horrific, and that's where a lot of these kids, Gen Z and what's the new whatever the young, even younger than that, are getting their information from
Yep.
4chan and stuff like that. I mean, this is
It's
just
weird. Yep. It's
horrible.
very weird.
And on top of that, you have adversaries that go in there and like create more chaos and more disinformation to ramp, to amp people up. It's just the way the world works. And I don't like the way things are going headed towards this country. I don't see a solution on the horizon. So I expect, more political violence.
Yeah. Sadly, I think you might be right. And I don't know what happens. My hope is that university campuses become de-radicalized. Will that happen? I don't know. It's going to take some engagement from the Department of Education to link funding to radicalized programs and radicalized professors, that sort of thing.
It,
But
it, it's hard.
universities,
It's hard, Tony, because you're
no, I
talking about
understand that.
like there's a line of like free speech where even the Republicans have been like don't demonize people for free speech, and I get that, but then on the other side you have these professors that don't even teach anything on their course; they just indoctrinate kids,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
left and right, right,
Well,
and
same thing with the education, the high school and middle school education system, right? Like, you have the teachers unions who are there to do some strange messaging as well. So from elementary, middle school, high school, all the way through university. So I suspect the Department of Education is going to link funding for certain things around messaging.
well, I'll tell you what, the U.S. government needs to stop a lot of the financial aid that goes to some of these universities, right? They
Yep.
make plenty of money, or take their nonprofit status away, do something,
Yep. Oh yeah,
right?
totally. Yeah. Um, yeah, interesting. So, where do you think this goes? Like, you know, as I said, Charlie Kirk influenced from millennials through Gen Z, all the way through whatever is after Gen Z. Is that Gen Alpha or something? I don't know.
Whatever they are.
But whatever, from if you're say 40 or say 35 and younger, you've been influenced by Charlie Kirk, whether you hate him and you're far left, or whether you are kind of a normal kind of Republican or whatever, and you think he's great. He's influenced almost everybody.
Even centrist Democrats are being called fascists and Nazis,
Yep.
by the far left. It's not just the Republicans. It's just
Yeah.
even centrist left. I mean, Charlie Kirk early in his career would DM me on topics, and followed me on Twitter for years. And
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't really agree with 100% of what he said. I
You don't
mean,
agree with 100% of
and
what anybody says, right?
yeah, of course, right? And it's just a sad outcome. I just don't know what happens. I don't know who steps up. I mean, Ben Shapiro was talking about doing college campuses again.
Oh.
They're not going to be doing it outdoors. I'll tell you that much. You
And
know,
I just can't see Ben Shapiro being all that. He doesn't have the Charlie Kirk appeal. I mean,
yeah.
interesting guy, but he just doesn't have the appeal.
The,
He's
the the other issue that nobody wants to talk about is the rising anti-Semitism.
Yep.
It's been prevalent in the left, but even on the right now, right? I have quite a few friends that are Christian right wingers, and they're
It's
starting.
I'm seeing it as well, and it's
Yeah,
pretty sad. It's
yeah.
it's very sad, and I hope that this kind of dissipates because I'm not that way at all. My adopted grandparents were when I grew up, the Horowitzes, obviously Russian Jews, and I've grown up with that influence in my life, and so I'm hoping that that dissipates at some point. I before we close this up, I do have to compliment Bernie Sanders. He came out with a video the day after the shooting and said, "Look, nobody should be celebrating this." He said, "I disagreed with Charlie Kirk. None of this is justified. None of this should be, this
And
should
the
simply."
crocodile tears from
Yeah.
AOC and Bernie Sanders. I don't want to hear them, sitting there condemning this in that manner when they're the ones calling everybody fascists and Nazis
Okay.
themselves. All right.
Okay.
I get what he's saying because he probably doesn't want to be a target himself,
Yep.
right? But he was one of the instrumental guys of calling the Republicans fascists and Nazis.
Is he? Okay.
And that never happened in American politics like 15, 20 years ago.
Do you think the left will ever call out their own?
No, never.
Never.
No, because they're dwindling numbers in terms of the electorate and winning elections, so they can't afford to call out their own. Because I mean, maybe what 10 to 20% of the Democratic Party right now is radicalized.
Yeah.
You can't win elections with them
Yeah.
not coming.
I was on with Bob Chino and Jim earlier in the week, and I was talking about how all this radicalization and protest and political assassination started in the late '60s with the baby boomers as they emerged,
Mhm.
and I believe we're starting to see the back end of that as the baby boomers are losing influence. Is that a fair criticism, or am I just crazy?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right about that. I mean, it's just as they're losing control. I mean, obviously they push agendas and narratives and whatnot to influence the youth in the manner they see fit.
Yeah, because they've got a lot of disposable income, right? So
Mhm.
a lot of that disposable income has gone to these leftist politics and all that stuff. So okay, let's move on to destabilization, global destabilization. The biggest one I've seen is in Nepal, where you've had this kind of youth protest over um, uh, kind of political corruption, but also kind of taking away access to social media and the internet. And then they burned Parliament down, then they burned the Prime Minister's house down, they beat up the finance minister, all sorts of
They
things.
killed the PM's wife too.
I don't know if that's true. I heard that she's in the hospital. I'm not sure if she actually died.
Oh no.
Regardless, no, regardless, it's like, I mean, so this Charlie Kirk thing, political violence thing, is not just a US thing,
No, of
it's a
course not.
global thing, right?
Yeah, it's always
And
been.
so we see all of this violence. It's, Nepal, Brazil, Colombia, elsewhere. So, if we just take Nepal and we look at, okay, I see people celebrating the fact that the Nepalese government fell, that the Nepalese parliament was burned, that the prime minister's office was burned, and all this stuff.
Mhm.
So, is that now normal? Like, are we seeing that as a normal way to topple governments? Have we kind of just given
Uh,
up on voting?
no, it's always been like that. I mean, listen, these are symptoms of stressful economic situations,
Yeah.
right? This is why this is happening because if people were rich and job and employed and have good outlook on life, they don't bother with this sort of things, right? The only time they start bothering with this is and starting coups and undermining governments is when the situation has become to the point where they can't live anymore,
Yeah.
right? Brazil's economy has been failing,
Yeah.
right? Um, Colombia's government and economy has been in shambles ever since Blinken and his cohorts put in the leftists,
Yeah.
right? And that they're actually about to, get back into like a domestic war with terrorists in the country too.
With the FARC.
Yeah, and then in Nepal, it's like Nepal was just appalling. I mean, looks, if you want to overthrow the government, that's cool. Do what you want to do, but just be real. Just realize that you are probably not the one that's going to lead the next government, and you might be the target the next time.
And life's going to be really hard for a while.
Very hard for a while, right? And just understand the ramifications. You overthrow a government, who comes in after you? It's who comes in after that government. It's not going to be you.
Right.
You know what I
That's
mean?
exactly right.
It's
It's a
going to be.
vacuum, and we see power fill a vacuum. We see corruption fill a vacuum. We see wealthy people fill a vacuum. regardless of what is done on the ground in terms of this popular uprising, there's always stuff that fills a vacuum. Look at Ukraine and the popular uprising that happened in Ukraine and the corruption that filled Ukraine after that and ruled it for a decade before the war with Russia.
Yeah, I mean, just you have to understand, it's like the most violent and the most corrupt usually take power in those type of vacuums, right?
Exactly.
Or they install people that's loyal to them.
Yeah.
And
So the guys who do this stuff, like in Nepal, I mean, they're the useful idiots, right? They get the current people out of power. It creates a vacuum for new corrupt people to come into power. You can't build the credible institutions to have a peaceful handoff of power, and it's a huge problem.
yeah, and they also become put on lists of dangers to the new government.
Yep. That's
Yeah,
right. That's exactly.
just remember that, Nepal.
It's true. It's true. So, okay, so let's also talk about these Russian drones over Poland and Romania. I know that you know Eastern Europe very well.
Mhm.
Why don't you talk to us a little bit about that?
I don't really take them very all that seriously. I mean, you're going to have a bunch of commentators that sit there and say, "Oh, this is just a prelude to a war," and they're scouting it out. Like, what are we talking about? They've got satellites and spies all over the place. They don't need drones to do that. I mean, I just think that they're trying to sow a little bit of chaos, poking, so on and so forth. I think these drones are actually coming out of Belarus, right? So Moscow can be like, "Hey, listen, this is this crazy guy in Belarus, not us," type,
Okay.
right? Or they say, "Oh, the Ukrainians hacked them," and blah blah blah. I mean, this
Right.
I don't think this is not a trigger for war. It's not a trigger for anything like NATO Article 4 or Article 5 or
No,
whatever.
it's
Yeah, I mean, it's just I get that people are looking for a reason to distract from the current situations
of course they are.
economically. So this is a perfect thing to do, but I just don't take them seriously. I mean, of course, NATO has to be on guard at all times,
Of
but
course.
realistically, I mean, Russia doesn't have the military to attack NATO by any means.
Well, and also realistically, what is Romania going to do? I mean, and what is Poland going to do? I mean, Poland has a very strong military, but it's a couple of drones. They're not attacking Poland. So it's not great, and they can shoot the next ones down now that this is something that they know about. But
Mhm.
I don't think Poland's going to go to war with Russia over
Oh
this.
no, no, absolutely not. Listen, the missile during the Ukraine war, missiles fell on Polish territory,
Yeah,
right? And of course, back channel, they're like, hey, it was sorry, malfunction, blah blah blah.
sure.
And the same situation is probably happening behind the scenes now. They're probably saying, they were hacked or Belarus is doing it, and so on and so forth. I don't really think anything serious comes of this.
Yeah. And look, for those Westerners who want to feel smug about this and say that Russia's terrible, we have to remember that the US sent a missile to the Chinese embassy in Yugoslavia in the 1990s on accident, right? Supposedly officially on accident, right?
Mhm.
So these things happen, right? I mean, I don't believe the US intentionally bombed the Chinese embassy in Yugoslavia, but whether it's an accident or whether it's not an accident, these things happen. You get upset about it, you make a lot of noise about it. But at the end of the day, are you really going to do much about it? No, these things happen. You have to protect your borders, shoot them down if you want, but this isn't going to cause World War III.
Yeah, these aren't triggers for a wider conflict. I mean, neither
Right.
side wants a wider conflict. I don't see one on the horizon. I mean, like I said, people, commentators been talking about the Suwalki Gap and Russia coming in with tanks, and I'm just like, what are you guys doing? Talking about '90s playbook war
Right.
games? Like,
80s
what are you guys?
playbook. Yeah,
Yeah, what are
exactly.
you guys talking about? It's just silly. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't put much into it. I'm probably gonna die down in about a week, and
Yep.
people move on.
Yep. So, what else are you thinking about as we go into the new week?
This absolute insane market rally. I mean, it's just like relentless. I would assume that this thing would have back tested or came down with bad like inflation data or unemployment data, and still everything that's negative comes to be a positive because everyone's talking about 75 basis points Fed cuts in the interest rates. Like okay, like we're at almost 60. We're at 6,600 on the ES. So what are you guys
Right.
talking? You
Exactly.
know?
Exactly. Now, I want to, since you brought up the Fed and cuts, Lisa Cook is still in place, right?
Yeah, she will be for another few months.
Right.
Yeah.
So, given how Trump has pushed on Lisa Cook, is there really going to be a cut? Like, do you think that the politics are there to actually get a cut this month?
I don't think so, and I don't really advocate them cutting. Uh, inflation. I know you and I have been on the opposite ends of inflation, but like even so, it's still not down, right? Even though if it's ticking up slightly, it's still not down, and like rate cuts are just not in the cards right now. And the labor market, yeah, you can make an argument that the labor market is weak, and it is really, but that's really just a continuation of COVID ending, right?
Yeah, like I I look at the data right now and I don't trust any of it.
Of course not.
I
Yeah,
don't
no,
trust
of course.
any of it.
No,
Inflation,
no,
employment, I'm sorry.
no, no,
I
no,
look at it, I don't trust it.
no, no.
I believe we've had a difficult economy for the past year, and I believe that the Fed cut 50 basis points last, was it August or September,
Mhm.
because they saw bad things coming and they didn't tell anybody, right?
Yeah, but they also saw that inflation was going down in that time frame and kept coming down, right? At this point, like super core inflation and other, inflationary numbers are going up, and they're lying about those things. I think it's probably even higher, but it's
Yeah,
government data.
but my point is this, Albert, we can talk about numbers all we want, but
Mhm.
what really matters at the end of the day is votes during the Fed meeting. And if Lisa Cook is still there, if Mirren isn't approved, if, other stuff is, I mean, how are they going to get the votes for a cut? These are all, I mean, except for two of them, they're partisans. And, I don't believe that Powell, I believe Powell's kind of sitting in the middle right now, but I don't
Mhm.
think he's going to lean toward a cut because of the way Trump has embarrassed him. So we can look at any data we want, any data. But at
Mhm.
the end of the day, S&P is at 6,600 and Trump doesn't have the votes to get a cut. So I'm not saying there won't be a cut, but I'm saying there's a possibility that there's no cut. And then what happens to markets? People
I,
panic,
yeah, of course they do,
right?
right? Of course they do.
So,
I don't think, I personally don't think they'll get a cut.
right,
Even if they do, it would be some kind of like nothing burger 25 basis points, which is
right.
probably already priced in, to be honest
Oh,
with you.
way priced in. I think
Yeah.
50's priced in. I mean,
75 might be
look
priced
at
in at
where
this
we
point.
are. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So then we get a decent pullback in the S&P. We
Hmm.
get long yields down, right? Because bond demand comes up. And
Hmm.
so, that's actually not a bad place to be right now.
No, it's not. And I was actually looking at the UOA, which is unusual option activity, and a lot of the call auction looks like it's like a blow off top for November. So,
Mm,
I mean, we might not get one in September, and the
right.
market might dip a little bit, but it looks
Yep.
like we'll probably get one, later on.
Well, that's kind of my view has been
Yeah.
where we may not get one in September. I'm pretty sure we'll get one in October because they'll say
Oh
no
yeah.
in September, markets will dip and they'll feel the pressure. And then, BLS and all these guys will come up with data that will say you have to cut. And then they'll go, okay, we embarrassed Trump a little bit. Now we'll cut.
Yeah. We should drop the L though and just say BS the entire
Yeah,
time.
of course, government statistics. I mean, again, over the last 15 years, 20 years, people have said, oh, Chinese government statistics are terrible.
Every government.
Statistics are, everybody's are
Everybody.
terrible.
I remember
So,
a story. I think I've told you this one before, but I remember a story where my friend Harold Malmgren went into LBJ's office and was like,
mm,
"Hey, this is the from the Treasury. This is the report. The Treasury report." So LBJ looks at it and he's like, "Nah, I don't like these numbers." Wrote his own numbers in there and signed each page.
yep,
It's like, these are the new numbers.
yep, exactly.
So that's the, I don't know. I don't think things go like that anymore. But still the numbers
Maybe
are.
they do, maybe they don't. Like, who knows? Unless you're on the inside, you have no idea,
That's
right?
true. Yep. Yep.
So, all right, Albert. Hey, thanks for this. Safe travels, and we'll see you in the new week. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Thanks a
Bye.
lot, Tom.